Welcome back to the AI Executive Podcast, the podcast where we explore how AI is reshaping leadership, business, and the future of work. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a guest whose leadership in finance, operations, and AI driven transformation speaks for itself. Look at him on LinkedIn, find him there, Stefan Burmer. Stefan is an executive vice president and chief financial officer at Körber Supply Chain here in Dallas, a company that's been pioneering AI driven solutions since the 1990s. Wow. With more than 25 years of global experience across accounting, finance, IT, legal, and procurement, Stefan has led complex initiatives at Siemens and Körber in North America, Europe, and Asia. His track record spans driving operational excellence, building a high performance team, and executing digital transformation strategies that deliver real business impact. Beyond his corporate leadership, Stefan is a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt, a board member at the CFO Leadership Council, and an advisor at Graphio.ai, a company applying AI to workforce analytics, and we know we need that today. He's also deeply committed to developing talent and integrating AI and data-driven solutions for strategic growth. And before we dive in, Stefan, I want to thank you for personally inviting me to the World Finance Forum in Dallas, right around the corner. And I'm excited to attend. And I know today's conversation will build on the incredible energy you're bringing to the finance and AI leadership community. So let's get started. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Albert, thank you very much. I'm excited to be on your show. I have listened to your podcasts before. I found them very interesting, informative. So I'm excited that you invited me to join you today.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man and you're creating an amazing impact. And what I love about you too, I've followed you for quite some time, especially being in the finance space and integrating it with AI. I just love the relationships that you make and you take time to really spend that quality time with people and they speak so highly of you. I remember coming up to a thing called the Dallas meetup and all I heard was your name and just the impression you've made on others. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Albert. I'll
My
invite you
pleasure.
again to the next Dallas meetup, May 1st.
Excellent. I
Let's see
can't
the
wait.
point.
That's right. I can't wait. Well, let's jump right in. So, Stefan, you've had a front row seat. You truly have to this rise in AI, specifically in finance and operations. I've been wondering, right? And I've played a lot in this space. How have you seen the role of the CFO evolve in this AI driven world?
The role of the CFO becomes more and more complex. It's not anymore only adding up numbers. We have to be part of the strategy, be part of the automation initiatives, and drive our company forward to automate, to simplify to the next step.
That's excellent. And I think there's a lot of CFOs out there that are either ahead of the curve here with this AI driven world,
Mhm.
right? Or this digital transformation, which I'd love to ask about next, especially in your role as a CFO Kober. You're doing a phenomenal job and you're definitely a pioneer in setting the pace for others. You are the rabbit. What's holding CFOs back from adopting AI? What is it? Is it the ROI? Is it the fear of leakage and risk mitigation or loss prevention? What is holding CFOs back right now to truly make that leap?
A lot of factors. I believe AI is a hype, lots of talk. To find the right business application is more difficult. I believe CFOs are afraid making a mistake, picking the wrong solution. I believe CFOs are afraid of the unknown budget. I mean, it's very difficult to
Hmm.
quantify how much will it cost me.
Right.
And I'm also afraid CFOs are concerned about the future. What happens if I implement something today, what is outdated tomorrow? I mean, the pace of development is so fast. Where do we start?
It's such a good point, and you bring up different variables there. As for the audience, those that are CFOs or even in business owner, franchisors, right? We have a lot of different listeners out there in their individual spaces and roles and professions. And those are excellent questions, not just for a CFO, but for us all. Those are different variables you need to think of when thinking about leaning in and investing in AI. It's such a great point. You brought up the word hype. I actually host a morning show. It's live on LinkedIn and YouTube and X. And I promise our audience that we're going to deliver key insights without the hype, because there's so much noise out there and it can be paralyzing for organizations, for enterprise, and for leaders when they're trying to find that competitive edge. And it sounds like AI is the thing, but it's like, where do you start? So I'm right there with you. Digital transformation, I mentioned that earlier, and you truly have been a pioneer. When I think of Körber and everything you're doing there specific to supply chain and manufacturing, what are you all focusing on when it comes to impactful AI integration, implementation, and applications right now in the marketplace?
That's a good question, Albert. AI is one of the available tools. It's not the only one. We have
Excellent.
applied tools on the customer side since 20 plus years, including AI. We started with RPA 5, 6 years ago, and we moved on. In the end, you have to find the right business solution. So, for example, we selected a company to automate our AP workflow based on AI
Wow.
to simplify approval processes, simplify rerouting of invoices. And I don't need to develop that by myself. I can get something which is on the market, plug and play. That is a big difference. Other areas include, of course, contract management. I mean, we also examples where contracts get reviewed in minutes versus what we normally take hours. Of course, your own ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot version to keep your confidential information in the company.
Right.
It's very scary if the employees upload it to the World Wide Web and anybody can leverage it. Yeah, just plenty of opportunity.
You have great opportunities that you all are taking action on. And the first follow up question that came to my mind when you talk about the automation and even these what I would describe as agentic workflows, right? And using AI first, how has that impacted your labor, your headcount? Have you had to, or have, and I say had, I'm sure there's a good reason, a favorable reason to reposition great talent. But have you had to also been forced, as you found easier ways and more productive ways to get these things done, for instance, the approval process and some others that you mentioned, have you had to cut any headcount due to the technology?
I wish. Körber is in a unique position. We want to double our revenue in 4 years. So we invest in additional manpower, additional products,
It's excellent.
additional pipeline opportunities. So our business is getting more and more complex, and we need to manage it with the same manpower in the back office. So we use automation to simplify the processes to keep our workforce stable.
That's excellent. Wow. And we'll get into the economic climate here in a sec, but I love that even within some of this uncertainty, Corporate continues to grow and actually invest in its people, one from a talent acquisition, but also your existing team. And I know that's something you're very passionate about, is developing the future talent of the organization so you continue to thrive. It's so good. You mentioned something about the CFO role and some of the things specific to AI being a tool and the hype, and we also mentioned some words around loss prevention and risk mitigation. Not the sexiest of the departments, I will say. Not a lot of people come to me or to others. I really want to talk about loss prevention and leakage mitigation. Although I love it when someone does, because I'm like, let's talk about how we save our dollars, right? Let's not waste or have shrink or what have you, depending on the industry. It reminds me of AI governance or AI ethics.
Mhm.
As a CFO, and as you're investing, as you are, heavily in AI and some other tools, automation and all that, how do you make sure that you are assessing the biggest risks, so that your financials, the supply chain, which is very important to you all, the manufacturing side, and then your people are protected? How does your organization make sure that the company is protected?
I mean, first to the ethical AI, what you had mentioned. I believe we have to provide guardrails for AI. I believe AI is not able to mitigate bias on its own. We have to be
Hmm.
careful what data we feed. We have to be careful how the data is used, manipulated. And in that regard, I'm very excited. I joined a think tank here, the CAO Circle, where we
Wow.
try to mitigate that and advertise for it to use AI strategically, ethically, and responsible. And we believe there needs to be some guardrails, some commitment agreement how we want to apply AI in the industry. To the processes, we still have our checks and balances. That doesn't go away. AI simplifies the processes for us, but in the end, we need to have our financial controller to look at it, to sign off on it. AI will not replace people at that stage. AI will help us, and people with AI knowledge will replace people without AI knowledge.
Oh, I
It's
love
not,
to touch on that.
yeah,
That's a great comment that you made there, and something that I promote quite often, both publicly on our show and in private. It's really interesting what you're talking about here. In the words that come to mind is augment, right?
correct.
Upskilling, right? Or even finding a way to focus on our team members, or if you are the professional, on your own development to become what I would call that tripwire, the supervisor of these agents or these AI workflows, right? I think that's where it's going, and we can find opportunity, especially for our finance colleagues, to reposition into these roles that will actually manage the human side of a headcount, the what I would call the digital species side of the headcount. I really like what you're saying there. It doesn't necessarily mean, we invest in this technology and now we're cutting and replacing. That's not the case, and I don't think many organizations want to do that. I don't know if that's even sustainable, both short term and long term. You posted something on LinkedIn that really caught my attention one day, and I came back to it multiple times. I didn't let you know, but you mentioned that employees with AI knowledge will outperform those without. And you mentioned something here recently, right? How do you and your organization approach AI literacy? Some call it AI IQ, right? Or AIQ, or upskilling your employees.
I mean, that is the same logic we applied every time in the past, whatever we trained.
Hmm.
If I go back in history, we switched from terminals to computer. We had to train computer handling. If I look at my Lean Six Sigma education, we had to define and educate
Oh,
people
that's
on
good.
Lean Six Sigma first.
Right.
It's the same with AI. We had a literature journey where we educated the people, where we explained what it is, how it can be used, showed examples, gave some reference tools, got the first use cases out of it, and used that as a base for the further development. In the meantime, I invite people for seminars to join us on education sessions or even on events where I go, just so they can experience it firsthand and listen to experts when they talk about it.
Excellent. Yeah, and I've followed along, and I've seen the events you've gone to. I've clicked on the links and some of the shows that you've been on, and it's just such a wealth of knowledge. You're an open book. I really appreciate that about you, and you also challenge the status quo. And I think with your background, as you were explaining Lean Six Sigma, right? You don't overcomplicate it, right? You chunk it up in parts, and to your point, it's like, wait a second, it's just a tool. Why would we roll it out any different to our team members? Right. And I love that you have a specific framework. And I truly challenge people that are listening to this, rewind that and go back to how Stefan's breaking that down. I'd really pay attention to that, because that is an excellent way. I mean, it was a 4 to 5 part section there that you can replicate in your own enterprise or your own business or just yourself. And so that was really good. What do you recommend, or what advice would you give, Stefan, to leaders out there, and maybe even our CFOs, controllers, senior account managers, right, our FP&A team that, is hearing a lot of the noise? You got to jump into AI. We got to figure out AI, or even agents or automations. Yet they're just overwhelmed with this pace of change.
Mhm.
What's your advice to them? How do they get started?
I mean, it's twofold for me. A, you should have a certain curiosity.
Right.
Get out there, learn about it, create a network. It can never hurt. And the second point is, when I started, I tried to create it by myself. We hired programmers, and we quickly learned we are not the best ones. It's not my core competency. So let's use consultants, third party, to supplement it and help us to drive the program forward. And there's
I'm
plenty of
that
consultants in the market.
Yeah.
I mean, we have talked with different ones. There's programs in the market, there's opportunities. I prefer using the experts instead of doing it by myself.
I love that. It's great advice, right? It doesn't mean you need to be a jack of all trades and you need to do it yourself. We talk a lot about that on the AI Executive Morning Show quite a bit, and I brought it up on a couple episodes of this podcast. And I'm seeing it a lot more though, which I really appreciate. And I do think when you look at platforms like LinkedIn, it's allowed for opportunities like that to not do it alone. And I'm hoping those that are outside of LinkedIn, maybe you're watching this on X or YouTube or Spotify, I'd recommend it. Stefan, you use LinkedIn quite a bit. Can you share just why you do that? I mean, there's not many CFOs out there, I'll tell you, that use LinkedIn the way you do. And I love how you do it because it's so people focused. I really appreciate that about you. I come from the finance space too, and there's a lot of great leaders out there, and then there's also a reputation in the finance space that it's you know dry, behind a computer, number crunching, not necessarily out in front and spending time with a lot of people. And that's okay too. There's a place for
Mhm.
that. But you really are out there. Where does that come from? And yeah, walk us through LinkedIn. Why do you use it so much? What's your intent?
It's a good question. People and relationships are important for me. When I joined Körber 3 years ago, I realized the brand name Körber is not well known.
Hmm.
We sell to big customers, but it's always B2B business. We don't talk with end customers. So for me, the goal is to increase the brand recognition for my company. And that's why I focus on Dallas right now, where we have our headquarters. We need employees, we need suppliers, we need to get our name out there so we get more attention in the market.
It's excellent.
I made that decision in October of last year, and it gave myself 1 year to invest and develop that. I like goals, I like strategic approaches, structured. And then, of course, the second topic is I want to influence. So I want to drive AI, I want to support AI, I want to help startups. So I have my own interest in doing that as well.
It's amazing. Yeah, well, you're doing a great job, and if there's anything I need to fill out for Corber to tell them that it's outstanding, please let me know. I'd love to help. What a great investment! And we had a recent episode that came out with Liam Darmody, who was
Mhm.
talking about the prevalence of using a platform like LinkedIn for your personal brand, personal professional brand, but really to elevate the organization. And you are following the formula. You are creating the formula and doing it so well. Amazing.
I
You've
mean,
operated. Oh, go ahead.
in my opinion, my company does marketing, but it's more topic related, product related,
Right.
scientific related. And what really attracts people is to read about other people. That's a
Agreed.
human factor, and that makes it interesting. That's why you click on articles or posts, and I'll try to mix it.
Well, it's working. You got me hooked on, and it's actually led to some good conversations between you and I, and actually an opportunity to see you on multiple occasions here coming up. So it works. LinkedIn is amazing. You've operated globally. A lot of our guests that we've had or that we've showcased are typically have just been domestic here in the U.S. But I've seen your LinkedIn posts, and then just from talking to you, I've followed some of the things that you post where you've traveled around the globe, and then your experience professionally around the globe, from Germany to the U.S. to Asia. Speaking of AI, how do you think AI adoption has differed or is differing across these different regions and cultures?
I mean, first, there are cultural differences between countries, regions, and we need to consider that. Germans approach challenges differently than Americans. Both approaches are successful. It's a different execution style. And the misunderstanding happens on the part of the execution because we don't
Hmm.
understand what the other party is doing because it looks strange from our point of view. So for me, the approach to AI follows the culture. I believe in Europe, you're much more concerned about the impact, the negative impact of AI. You want to define first the railways, the structure, minimize the risk. While in America, we are much more gung ho, let's figure it out while we go along. And
Right.
in many cases, that works. China is for me a different animal because China, in my opinion, gets supported by the Chinese government. And when they
Right.
decide it's a core industry, they pour money in it.
Hmm.
And that's why you see these leapfrog technologies where suddenly DeepSeek gets published and questions everything we have seen here in the US before.
Right. Yeah, totally shocked the market. What that was about
Yep.
a month and a half to 2 months ago. We were talking about it here a couple days ago around just AI threats and compliance. There's actually a recent study that looked at OpenAI, Grok, Claude, and DeepSeek, and the amount of times that they failed when they were going through some compliance AI auditing. And DeepSeek, unfortunately, didn't score so well. Now, again, that was a U.S. based study, so I'm not sure how much weight I give that, especially when you're considering kind of this AI race going on right now. But I thought it was interesting,
Mhm.
and to your point earlier, they're tools, and I get a sense that we probably agree on this. While tools and they're amazing, you mentioned there's still some human in the loop, human intervention, and we don't need to fully trust these tools, right? Like anything, it's not foolproof, and you need to offer your discernment and skepticism. I think that's okay. I think the tools actually get better when we do that versus just taking them 100% at face value as fully accurate or failure hallucination proof, right?
And I believe we all have made that experience. We use ChatGPT, we ask a question, and we are surprised about the response.
Right.
And then you say, oh, I didn't want that one. Let's rephrase the question. So in many ways, this is what I expect at work as well. I get results, I get support, but I have to make sure it's the right one.
Exactly. I love that. That's good. And I think that offers some clarity and actually some security and reassurance to the audience out there, especially for those, the labor market and the labor and job market has been a big buzz topic. When I look at, and I'll get to analytics here in a little bit, but when I look at our analytics, when putting out podcast episodes and our morning show and our videos, a lot of people tend to move towards the one that is speaking about the economy and the labor market.
Mhm.
And I love your comments today because I really do think it gives reassurance to those that are currently employed by organizations that are investing in AI, or those that are looking for something else and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I learn all this as fast as possible so that I'm ahead of the curve? And what we're saying here is, one, you don't need to do that. Start small and start and learn and stay curious. And then also, two, many organizations are not looking to replace, they're looking to make our team members happier and more productive. I think really think that's the intent, or reposition our employees to supervise this intelligence that we have here. So it's really good.
I mean, we will see a shift in positions. If
Right,
you look at the
exactly.
universities today, what they train, it's different than what they trained 10, 20 years ago, which is great because we have to keep in mind they are training our future employees, which we will need in 5, 6 years. So, of course, there are different requirements.
Right.
And we will see that shift, but that doesn't mean the current employees don't have work anymore. I mean, it's a never ending story of learning. You always continue to educate, continue to develop. And that's why I recommend everybody get into AI, understand AI, start working with it, start privately working with it, leverage basic tools. It's a good start.
I love it. Well, great recommendation. And I call that a challenge. We're challenging the audience. Please, we're challenging you to lean in. You heard it right from Stefan, who's been able to do it and doing it well, all right, and learning. I do want to get off AI just for a second
Mhm.
here. We had a brief chat about this, and I followed you, like I mentioned, for quite some time. We're talking about the global climate, the economic climate, and a big buzz topic today is tariffs. And I'd love to spend some time today to talk about how Körber and maybe even some of your competitors are being challenged with the tariff climate, if at all yet, or if you plan on it in the future, especially in the manufacturing supply chain and that side of the business. Where do you see things going? It's been pretty intense here. I see it headliners just about every day right now, at least domestically here. I can't imagine what they look like in Canada, China, South America, Mexico, and some others. What are you seeing just from an enterprise level?
I mean, we had that discussion at a recent meeting at the European American Chamber of Commerce, and I believe all companies are concerned. Either it impacts them already now, or they know it will impact them.
Right.
The challenge is we don't know what will come. So every morning when I read the newspaper, I read something new and I have to research and adjust to it. It is overly complicated because tariffs are based on HTS codes,
Right.
which are not easy to understand, where you have multiple options what to use. Depending on which code you use, you have different tariffs. If you don't supply a code, or your supplier doesn't supply a code, the freight forwarder can estimate one or guess one, and the end you pay again a tariff. So that complexity companies have to understand. We have to understand Incoterms. What tariff can I forward to the customer? What tariff can I push to the supplier? But in the end, it will increase the cost in America. That means there are different studies, and even if it's only tariff on third-party imports, the local market will increase the prices as well. You can assume we cannot manufacture everything locally, so we will get hit by it, and companies will blend the tariffs over all products, and you see a general price increase.
Right. So I'm trying to understand the long game here. Well, I understand. I guess I think I understand this intent of creating a fair playing field. That's been the message out there. I don't see the benefits, at least domestically here, when costs are already high, right? When we're expecting with some of this transition here and now into 2025 for costs to start lowering. But actually what people need to understand, if this all goes through and does what it typically does, some of the consequences of tariffs, at least here domestically, are higher costs, right? There has to be some absorption somewhere, because a higher cost for an organization, well, we're still trying to maintain, if not beef up our margin. It has to go somewhere, whether that be, is it a reduction in labor force to do that? Is it a price increase, which is probably more probable unless you're able to, or have the technology to be able to reduce your labor force without impacting productivity and top line revenue, et cetera. I just find it really interesting. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction?
I wouldn't be here if I could predict it. Um, I mean, tariffs are nothing new. If you go back, President Trump in his first presidency started with tariffs.
Hmm.
President Biden increased them. President Biden, for example, added 100% tariff on electric vehicles from China.
Right.
So it's not something which is totally new and just happened. The difference is the magnitude. In the past, we targeted with tariffs specific industry, specific material, and now it seems like it's everywhere on everything and changing daily.
Right.
I believe we have to differentiate. I truly hope that our president will settle on the tariffs with the key trading partners because it will hurt us all.
Sure.
It will risk employees' positions. It will risk our price stability. On the other side, I believe the tariffs will remain on China because that was a steady increase since the last 8, 10 years.
Yeah. This reminds me, and again, I'm sure I'll get some messages about this because I'm probably not doing it any justice nor saying it completely accurate. But it does remind me, especially in this global economy, and it's a little bit different than in past, but I like history, and it does
Mhm,
remind me of a leader that is known very well, Napoleon, right? For the goods and the
mhm,
bads. But what he did, it was a very nationalistic approach, right? And we wanted to be French first, right? You hear that, whatever the country is first, got it. And I see the benefits to that. But what he ended up doing is disconnecting his country from the world in a sense through tariffs. And unfortunately, it was a big variable to the demise of that regime, I guess you can call it. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities there, and I know it's a different environment and a different world. I just don't know how this all plays out. So I'm like you; I can't predict either. I'm just curious about
mhm,
the domestic and international impact. Domestically, there has to be some sort of contra, meaning, well, if the public and our citizens are going to face higher prices because of these tariffs, there has to be something else counterbalancing that. And I don't know if that's with taxes or
mhm.
what have you, but I'm curious to see. I mean, we're going to need something, or it's not going to go well for this administration. If we're just facing higher prices than what we've had the last 4 years, that's not going to be a fun conversation, I don't think.
I mean, for me, countries have similar challenges. I'm from Germany. If I compare Germany with the US, We both have immigration issues.
Right.
We both have high prices, inflation issues. Different aspects. In Germany, energy prices are really high, factor 5, 6, 10 times from the US. So we have similar issues, but we try to solve it in different avenues, different solutions. And we have to see how that plays out. And one of the other country might be more successful, but I think right now it's too early to say that. I mean,
Yeah,
we all
I think so
agree we
too.
have to do something, and let's work through it and make the best out of it.
That's great. Well, speaking of Germany, right? I know they took a pretty strong approach to energy,
Mhm.
and I know I'm still getting away from AI. We'll come back to it here in a sec. But it's such an interesting. These are interesting topics, and I'm just glad we have this platform to speak together and have a conversation. How is that going? I know it was a hot topic and a big investment and gamble on the energy sector in Germany. How is it going, and is it recovering? How are they doing?
I think the energy prices increased significantly, which
Right,
impacts households and companies who produce in Germany. And there's a lot of discussion around that. At what point do you price yourself out of the market?
right.
I mean, you have again different avenues. Germany wanted to push renewable energy. They choose one path. If I look, I was at a event from the Canadian American Chamber of Commerce in regards to energy, and Texas and Canada are leading in renewable energy. So there's again, we have the same ideas, the same struggles. We use different avenues to get there.
Hmm.
And sometimes one is more successful than the other, and then you need to adjust and fine tune. And I believe in Germany, they try to find ways how they can lower the cost of energy.
Well, I know the citizens there are excited about those measures that are being discussed, right? And
Uh-huh.
you're right. We need to push those prices down. And it's interesting that you mentioned renewable energy in Texas, such a large industry. We have a lot of people actually migrating here
Uh-huh.
for it, right? It's a big push, which I appreciate. There's a lot of diversification here in Texas, especially where you are in Dallas, right? There's a lot going on there over the years, not just,
Uh-huh.
recent. Over the years, Dallas has done a great job. And obviously Frisco, we had a podcast recently with Melissa
Yeah.
Kraft, the CIO of Frisco. She's doing a phenomenal job in the tech side of things. Energy is always a big player in Texas, but I love the renewable side too. It's just diversifying and protecting the state, which is great.
I
Excellent.
mean, I'm impressed because Dallas plays in various industries. And if I
Right.
say Dallas, I mean the greater Dallas area. And in my opinion, we take away more and more startups from California, from Silicon Valley. They come to Texas because the environment is much more business friendly. And we also start to moving money away from New York. We see the financing venture capitalists also looking at Texas. So there's really a good scene of investment ideas, money available for these ideas, and that's why I believe the growth will continue.
And I love that you promote it too. I've seen you on your LinkedIn truly promoting not only your colleagues, your partners, your organization, but the state of Texas, Dallas, right?
Mhm,
The DFW area or greater Dallas area, downtown. I really appreciate that about you because sometimes people don't know. And, maybe it's not working out in the states that they're in or the cities that they're in. And again, for the audience, I highly recommend you follow Stefan on LinkedIn. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes and comments. But you put a lot out there. It's really interesting and super valuable. I appreciate it. You recently joined Graphio.ai. We haven't chatted about this, so I was really excited. I was excited to hear about this as I was doing more research. And so you joined as an advisor. How do you see AI transforming talent management and workforce analytics? This is such a good topic.
I mean, first, as I had mentioned, there's a lot of ideas in the market, a lot of programming ideas. Graphio AI has already a solution which works. So that's for me the first differentiator. There's something I can show, I can follow, it works. Employee evaluations are difficult. You don't have the time, you don't have the data, you only have a subset of information. With the automation, you get the full picture, looking at salespeople, what pipeline did they generate last year, how much did they close, how many customer visits did they have, how fast do they respond to inquiries. All the data is in our systems. You can pull it out and you can create a scorecard, which
Wow.
then again you supplement to the manager, say, here's the KPIs input to help you with the evaluation of the employee.
So good. You think about those stories where you have a review process or performance management process, and you
Mhm,
just have employees that are unsure how those are going to go, or are surprised, or leaders that don't know how to execute it well. It's hard to measure, right? Truly, how to
mhm,
rank. You hear a lot about these 9-box assessment
mhm,
scores, right? I love this. I think the human resource, human capital space, the talent development space, learning and development space is so prime for this technology, and I love that you are pushing this as well. We have a podcast episode coming out with Paul Carney later next week, and it truly was a challenge and a message to CHROs to start also leaning into. Stefan, I know you're a CFO, but you truly you don't create a silo in this part of the industries, right? You truly bring everyone together, including the human capital side, which I think is amazing. So I'm excited about that episode, but really what you're doing here, we need to go check out graphio.ai and again, take a look at what you all are up to. It's such an amazing space. And I love the press to create happier team members. Team member experience is truly near and dear to my heart. And I just love that we can use this technology to improve that experience for our number one priority, which is team members and
mhm.
employees. It's
And,
excellent.
and by the way, that's also the philosophy of Körber. We focus on our employees, and then we are customer centric, but we need to have our employees first happy, successful, because they will take care of the customer.
It's excellent. Well, let's switch back into supply
Mhm,
chain. It's really interesting. When I think of supply chain, I again going back in history. This is recent, since 2020, right? We had the big supply chain shock, right? As everything closed down and then reopened up, just nothing was really matching. There was a lot of noise and a lot of
mhm.
tension in the supply chain channel there. Where now that we've gone through that and this technology is now readily available and more cost effective, where do you find AI being the most or having the most immediate impact in the supply chain space?
I believe AI can always create transparency. Create transparency what suppliers are out there, create transparency what suppliers have stock. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. In the past, supply chain was highly manual. You look on different marketplaces, you call around, you send out RFPs. I think that process can be more structured, more simplified.
It's excellent. Really good. I appreciate that on how it's improving supply chain and allowing, right? Also for when you do those things, not only margin increases, right, but price reductions in other areas or cost reductions. I learned that about you. You in your tenure, one of the things that I know you're super proud of and you've achieved, and actually something when I go and lift up the hood of organizations, I always go to their vendors, their vendor negotiation contracts, right, or agreements. You've done a phenomenal job within your professional career and will continue to do so around price reductions and actually saving the organization's money while not impacting vendor relationships, right? Come back to that on you being so adamant about relationships, and that goes for our vendors too. But you've been able to maintain and even strengthen those relationships while finding ways to reduce prices, right, within those agreements through some great renegotiation. Can you walk us through and just simplify it for us if someone's listening out there that knows, man, I really need to lift up the hood on these vendor agreements to find some sort of saving? What would you recommend that they do?
I mean, that was an example of my past role, and in the end, it's data. So we analyzed how many part numbers we buy from which vendor, what's the consumption, what was the last price increase, what's our projection for the future, can we make some volume commitments. And with that data, we structured the parts and we went back to the suppliers and asked for, we need to talk about a price reduction because we buy much more volume. Can
I love
we
that.
change the part number? Can we do something there? Can we bundle something?
Hmm.
And I think in the end, it's all about data. And that's again where AI can help. Because when I did that, it was a big Excel list. And you pull data out of SAP and you merged it into Excel. And that's not really the value add somebody can bring. So that's where AI could play a major role.
That's excellent. You brought up actually earlier too. I love that you mentioned it, but the enterprise level of Microsoft
Mhm.
Copilot, which by the way, big shout out to Mustafa Suleiman, the CEO of the AI space, or CAIO, right? They're doing a phenomenal job. They just released their agentic or agents, although I think they're still kind of GPTs in my opinion. They're almost there where they won't probably require a ton of human intervention or human in the loop, but they're moving in the right direction. I've always been impressed by the ecosystem of Microsoft, but you mentioned it earlier, within your license, within your enterprise subscription and model, it's secure, because I know there's a lot of CIOs and others that are out there that are just concerned with Microsoft or OpenAI or some others, specific to security and leakage of information. But there still are ways, and Microsoft has been a great example on doing that. So I love that you're able to take a lot of this data that you're using, and whether it be within a CRM system, ERP, what have you, and actually scrub through the data to find some of these anomalies, find some of these opportunities. And if those out there are looking for ways to reduce costs, right, this is a great way to do it. I'd go to your vendor agreements. There's typically some, what I would call fat there, some waste.
And on the AI IT side, I need to give a big shout out to our Körber headquarter in Germany.
Yes.
They manage it globally. Digital is for us one of the core business areas we have. So we advise customers and we help
Wow.
ourselves. And our IT group is also looking for these solutions. And that company-wide Microsoft approach makes totally sense, because the biggest risk we have if our employees upload data to the net.
Right.
I mean, they use ChatGPT at home, they use it at work. They don't realize if they upload confidential information.
And I've heard of, I have colleagues that are in the loss prevention space, and unfortunately team members have lost their roles, their jobs, because they unknowingly, right, maybe ignorantly, but still did it, uploaded confidential information to
Mhm.
an open source type of LLM or something like that, and didn't anonymize it or didn't remove logos, names, things like that. And unfortunately, especially if you're truly feeding the model, it's out there. And so it's just something that for those listening, just do these things with caution, right? Have some common sense, but and do it with caution, right? Make sure that if you're doing anything through the organization, make sure that it's your organization's license and it's secure within the infrastructure there. So that's a really good call out. I'm really excited. By the way, again, thank you so much for the invitation to the World Finance Forum in Dallas. I'm looking forward to coming on up. I feel like I've been out there quite a bit. I'm here in Houston, and shoot, my wife's telling me we might as well move up there, and I think I might. um, what are you most excited about the event? Any trends or topics that you're eager about?
I mean, we have really got topics during the event, and for me, it's the exchange with other CFOs and finance experts. Having a day to sit down and talk about what are the issues we see, what are the issues they see. In exchange, we get the most information out of it, and we can leverage it for the future. I mean, topics are, of course, AI, sustainability, automation, and different companies have different approaches.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be. Yes, I was looking at the agenda again. Just it's coming around the corner, and there truly is a lot of great topics, both fundamentally to finance and some others, but also that press to automation and AI. And I'm excited to learn more and meet a lot of great people. I look forward to spending time with you. So, when you think about looking ahead in 2025 and even beyond, and you as a CFO, I know you're thinking even further, right? What skills, this is for our finance colleagues and executives out there, what skills do they need to start improving, developing, learning in order to stay competitive in this what is and what will be an AI driven economy?
I mean, in the end, it's AI skills, understanding the tools available, benefits, leveraging it, also understanding whom to ask, whom to go to. I don't need to know everything. That's why networking is so important. For me, it's always important to show empathy to the employees, focus on the employees, but that didn't change. That's still the same what was important for me
Right,
10 years ago.
right,
I need my employees to be performing, and I achieve that through empathy and listening and supporting them.
I love that. I'm a big fan of the FP&A strategic finance space, and I'm looking forward to chatting about this topic with you, or was really looking forward to. What is Körber doing, and what are you doing to make sure as you're building forecasting models, pro formas, cash flow forecasting? Are you currently integrating AI in some of those modelings and forecasts and budgets? Right, we just came through our 2025 budget right months ago, and we'll soon get into 2026 and beyond. Do you currently use AI in some of those meetings and conversations and build outs?
I mean, we have a really old SAP system, which I can't wait to upgrade to HANA
Yeah.
in a few years.
Oh, good.
But I was really excited because Körber implemented Power BI, which
Excellent. I
I can
love
use
Power BI. Well,
to
so you're
manipulate.
using the whole ecosystem. I love it.
And again, AI is one of many tools.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, I don't need to go everywhere to AI. Power BI works very well, and
Yes.
it can extract the data, it can manipulate the data, and it can display the data. And add-ons are much easier to implement versus an upgrade to SAP.
I love it. Yeah. I'm wishing you get that upgrade soon, and I know it's a pretty penny, especially I'd imagine the data migration is definitely heavy, right? To do I'm sure you've been through a lot of those, and those aren't fun. But I'm excited for you to do that. What advice would you give finance leaders listening today who are ready to move, from AI experimentation to actual operational impact?
Number one, start
Hmm.
small. I think the biggest mistake is to debate and not do anything. Start small means also leverage advisors, consultants to figure out what makes sense. It might be different than what you have in mind. And in general, upskill the employees. Get your employees on board,
I love that.
enable them to educate, to train, because in the end, you need your employees to support it and manage it.
So good. Well, gosh, this has been such a pleasure. I know for the finance executives out there, but for everyone, right? There's really a lot of nuggets and lessons here. Again, I go back to how you really broke down how to learn about AI, how to use it, how to think of it, how to use it in the performance management cycle as well, not just supply chain and manufacturing. So many good things here. Stefan, thank you so much for your time. This truly was, I mean, this was a mini MBA masterclass course on just modern finance, right? And I think a lot of people are going to gather that, especially as they go follow you on LinkedIn, and not just finance, but truly operational excellence and leadership when you combine with some of these tools, automation tools, agentic workflow tools, and AI. And I appreciate your perspective and how you're applying it, and you're showcasing it transparently on your platform, as we were talking about your professional brand and Körber, and how that's really making an impact and elevating the brand for people and customers and the financials. So really excited there. This has been amazing. I have one last question. I've mentioned it a couple times, but what's the best way to connect with you for the listeners out there? Is that an email, LinkedIn? What's the best way to reach out to you? Because you have such a wealth of knowledge and you pour into others. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that would love your mentorship and guidance.
I mean, the best way is LinkedIn, but I don't need any offers for recruitment support or consultants. We have that in-house.
Good.
And of course, at events. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, Dallas Meetup is coming up May 1st.
May
It's a
1st.
huge
That's
event.
right.
Come by, we can talk. It's much easier when we can connect on events versus trying to set up something individually.
That's excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to not only the World Finance Forum in Dallas, but I too already made my RSVP with Carson and the crew. So I'll see you there too. What is that in about a month?
Yes,
I'll make my way up there, and we'll have a nice beverage, and we'll talk more finance and AI. I can't wait.
excellent. Thank you so much, Albert.
I love it. Thank you so much. Well, this wraps up our episode for the AI Executive Podcast. Thanks again to Stefan Burmer. for joining us today. And thank you all for listening. I'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.